Hello everyone, it's me again, Joseph, your host, and welcome back to our channel and the Catechism for Kids. Today, we're journeying back in time to meet a brilliant saint whose courage and wisdom saved a precious part of our Christian heritage. His name is Saint John of Damascus, also known as John Damascene, and his feast day is December 4th. He's a doctor of the Church, which means his writings are a true treasure for all of us. He's also the patron saint of pharmacists, icon painters, and theology students. So, if you're studying, creating art, or working to bring healing, St. John is praying for you. Let's set the scene. Imagine the city of Damascus in the early 7th century. It's one of the oldest cities in the world, a vibrant part of the Eastern Roman or Byzantine Empire. It was a predominantly Christian city with a rich cultural mix, but history was about to take a dramatic turn. After the death of Muhammad in 632, Islamic forces expanded rapidly, and by 635, Damascus was under their control. By 661, it became the capital of the Umayyad Caliphate. For Christians living there, life changed. Their rights were restricted. They had to pay a special tax, wear distinct clothing, and held a lower legal status than Muslims. But they were allowed to practice their faith. In fact, because of their excellent Greek and Roman education, some Christians were given important government jobs, especially in finance. It was into this complex world, around the year 676, that St. John was born. His parents were devout Christians who refused to let their faith be weakened by the pressures around them. John's father was one of these highly respected Christians, serving as a chief administrator for the caliphate. He made sure his son received the best education possible. One day, John's father was in the public market and saw a slave for sale named Cosmas. But Cosmas was no ordinary man. He was a highly educated monk from Sicily, a genius in theology, philosophy, music, and astronomy, who had been captured by raiders. John's father recognized his brilliance, secured his freedom, and entrusted him with his son's education. John and another boy, an orphan his father cared for, studied under this incredible teacher. Cosmas filled John's mind with knowledge, not just of the faith, but of the world. And living in Damascus, John also became an expert in Islamic law and culture when his father passed away. John, being a man of great learning and virtue, was asked to take his father's place in the caliph's administration. But as John grew older, he felt a pull towards something more. He felt the non-Christian environment weighing on him and longed for a life dedicated completely to God. In his late 20s, he made a radical decision. He resigned from his powerful position, sold his possessions, gave the money to the poor, and walked away from the world. He retreated to the desert monastery of Mar Saba, near Jerusalem, taking his beloved teacher Cosmos with him. For the next 20 years, John dedicated himself to becoming a monk. This wasn't just about quiet prayer. It was a complete transformation. Under the guidance of his spiritual director, he learned to renounce his own will, to let go of worldly attachments, and to offer every single action to God. He fought against pride, avoided seeking flashy spiritual experiences, and learned the power of silence. He did the most humble tasks his superiors gave him, all while studying, praying, and doing penance. He entrusted himself completely to God's mercy. He grew so much in holiness, humility, and wisdom that his superiors saw something special in him. They believed he was worthy of being ordained a priest, which was actually uncommon for monks at that time. They saw that as a priest, his incredible mind and spirit could be a powerful force for good in the church. So John was ordained and given a new mission, to use his gifts to address the great theological battles of his day. And a huge battle was brewing. It was a controversy that threatened to tear the church apart, known as iconoclasm, which literally means image breaking. It started when the Islamic Caliph, Yazid, issued an edict in 721 to destroy all Christian icons and churches throughout his territory. The reasoning was that the Old Testament forbids making images of God. Soon after, this idea spread to the Byzantine Empire itself. The emperor, Leo III, a very religious man, became convinced that venerating sacred images was a form of idolatry. Between 726 and 729, he issued his own decrees, outlawing icons throughout the empire. The Patriarch of Constantinople opposed him, so the emperor just replaced him. The Pope in Rome also opposed him, creating a massive rift between the Eastern and Western churches. It was a crisis. Icons, which had been part of Christian prayer for centuries, were being smashed and burned. This is where Father John of Damascus stepped in. Under obedience to his superiors, from the quiet of his monastery, he wrote his first great work, the apologetic treatises against those decrying the holy images. In this brilliant work, he laid out the theology of icons in a way that was both profound and easy for ordinary people to understand. He made a crucial distinction that we still use today, the difference between latreia and proskinesis. Latreia, he explained, is worship, adoration that is due to God alone. We worship God and only God. Proskinesis, on the other hand, is veneration or honor. We can venerate a sacred image, not because the wood and paint are divine, but because it points us to the holy person it represents, Jesus, Mary, or a saint. John's argument was groundbreaking. He explained that the Old Testament prohibition against images made sense before the Incarnation. God was unseen, immaterial. How could you depict him? But in Jesus Christ, the invisible God became visible. The Word became flesh. God took on a material body, and in doing so, he sanctified the entire physical world. Matter was no longer just matter. It could now be a vehicle for grace, a window into the divine. An icon of Jesus isn't an idol. It's a celebration of the Incarnation. It reminds us that our God loved us so much he became one of us. This logic also extended to the saints, who now share in God's glory. Venerating their images is a way of honoring the work of God in their lives. As you can imagine, the emperor was furious. He couldn't stand being challenged by a monk in a desert. A famous story, a tradition, tells of the emperor's revenge. He allegedly forged a letter in John's handwriting that made it look like John was plotting to betray Damascus to the Byzantine Empire. He sent this fake letter to the Caliph. The Caliph, believing the forgery, was enraged. It ordered that John's right hand, the hand that wrote the defense of icons, be cut off and displayed publicly, according to the story. Once the brutal punishment was carried out, John took his severed hand and prayed all night before an icon of the Blessed Virgin Mary. He begged her to restore his hand so he could continue to write in defense of her son. The next morning, his hand was miraculously reattached, whole and healed. This event, whether historical or legendary, captures a profound truth. God's power worked through St. John. Despite John's powerful defense, the battle wasn't over. 5 years after his death in 749, a council was called by the emperor that officially condemned his writings and the use of icons. But truth ultimately prevails. In 787, at the Second Council of Nicaea, the Church officially vindicated St. John. His theology was embraced. The veneration of icons was affirmed as Orthodox Christian practice, and that earlier council was declared illegitimate. John had won. Because of him, we still have the beauty of icons to draw us closer to God. But his defense of icons was just one part of his incredible legacy. He also wrote a monumental work called An Exact Exposition of the Orthodox Faith. This book was like a master summary of all the teachings of the early church fathers. It became a standard textbook for theology for centuries. He also wrote beautiful hymns that are still sung in the Eastern churches, sermons on the Blessed Virgin Mary, and works against various heresies. He even wrote a critique of Islam, pointing out its theological flaws from a Christian perspective. St. John Damascene died around the year 749, leaving behind a legacy of brilliant writing and unshakable faith. But it's so important to remember where all that brilliance came from. It came from the desert. It came from 2 decades of silent prayer, humility, and obedience in the monastery of Mar Saba. He had to build that deep, solid foundation of union with God before God could use him to do such great things. His life teaches us that our gifts, whether in art, music, writing, or learning, are meant to lead us to God. But we can only use those gifts properly if our lives are first rooted in him. In 1890, Pope Leo XIII officially declared him a doctor of the Universal Church, recognizing his teaching as a gift for all time. As we honor this great saint, let's reflect on our own spiritual foundations. Are we taking the time for prayer, for humility, for uniting our will to God's? Without that solid base, God is limited in how he can work through us. But with it, As St. John's life shows, anything is possible for the glory of God and the salvation of souls. Let's end with a prayer. St. John Damascene, you heard God's call to leave the world and enter into deep communion with Him. In that holy monastery, you were formed in virtue and wisdom. God then used you in remarkable ways for the good of the Church and His glory. Please pray for me that I will embrace the deeper conversion I need so as to be better equipped to serve God as He wills. St. John Damascene, pray for me. Jesus, I trust in you. Amen. Thank you for joining us today. If you were inspired by the story of St. John Damascene, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories of the saints. You can also consider becoming a member or giving a one-time donation through Super Thanks. Take care, everyone. Stay safe and healthy as usual. See you next time, and may God bless you always.